Welcome to the Healthy You podcast from North Shore University Health System, where we explore trending topics in healthcare. I'm Carolyn Starks.
And I'm Jon Hillenbrand.
So today is our Thanksgiving episode, Jon.
Yay.
Did you know that?
Yes, I know it's coming up, and hopefully I'll have this edited by then.
What are you thankful for, Jon, this Thanksgiving?
So you gave me this question in advance, and so I've been thinking about it. And the one thing I wanted to say was I'm thankful for my niece, who just turned 14, and I figured I might as well mention her because she is the coolest, and she's growing up to be a very cool person and not someone I'm embarrassed by. But really, I'm also thankful for my job because getting to spend time with photographing nurses and doctors and everybody doing their thing with coronavirus has been such an inspiration that I think if I didn't have that, I might be more cynical in these crazy times. So I don't know. What about you? What are you thankful for?
I was going to say turkey.
Turkey?
I don't know.
That's a perfect answer after my answer.
I'm not prepared. I'm literally like a first grader, like that basic.
That is awesome.
When the teacher says, "What's Thanksgiving mean?" Turkey.
Turkey.
And I have one of those turkey hand drawings up on my office wall where you trace your hand and it's the feathers.
We should do that. At work. I love that answer, actually.
All right, good. Well, that's the bandwidth I have today.
You know, it's the simple things.
There you go.
It's the simple things in life, just being appreciative that you don't have some sort of like turkey illness, being able to enjoy a turkey on Thanksgiving, shout out to all the people who have food allergies, my sister.
I'm very grateful for our guest today.
Yes.
Luisa Penepacker, who is a RN at Glenbrook Hospital, our designated COVID hospital, in the ICU. So she treats COVID patients and patients who are severely ill. And I had an opportunity to speak with her a little bit before today, and I'm so excited for you to meet her. And
I'm excited, yeah.
Just so much to be grateful for.
Yeah, Glenbrook is our COVID hospital where we send all of our COVID positive patients. And actually, they would not let me on the IC unit there. Like, they let me shoot photos everywhere except there because you have to get on a PAPR, which is like this kind of spacesuit thing with like a fan attached and everything, covers your entire head. And it's a positive pressure unit or negative pressure. I can't
Probably
remember.
negative pressure.
Negative pressure unit. So they've pressurized the entire unit so that they don't have to have individual rooms pressurized. So that way they can increase the number of ICU beds. So she gets up, goes to work, and enters that other world every day and treats patients, and that's pretty amazing, anyone who does that.
So, as I mentioned, we have a special guest with us today. This is Luisa Penepacker. She's an RN, a registered nurse at Glenbrook Hospital. Thanks for being here, Luisa.
Thank you for having me, Carolyn.
We are especially excited to have you here this week because it's Thanksgiving week, and we are so thankful for you and our nurses at North Shore who are taking care of our most critically ill patients. So how long have you been a nurse?
Oh, wow. I've been a nurse for about 29 years. I did take some time off to be an at-home mom for a while, but I got once a nurse, always a nurse, and 29 years.
Wow.
So what's the ICU at Glenbrook Hospital look like, if we could explain it visually to our listeners?
Well, we are all COVID right now. We are very busy. There is a lot of activity going on with lots of admits, discharges. The floors are, pretty full as well. So we have a lot of people transferring out, and more acute people coming in. So it's a very busy place, very loud, chaotic at times. But
are the rooms glass rooms where you could walk down a hall and just look in and see a patient?
Yes. The doors are glass. All the doors are closed. But yes, as you walk down the hallway, you could see all the patients through the hallways.
What happens if you see a patient who is struggling and you don't have your protective gear on, like struggling to breathe?
We have the PPE right outside the rooms in isolation carts. So if we see someone who's having a hard time, of course we would try to alert the nurse, but we would just, before going in, we would gown up, put on our gloves. We're already masked, and we're already wearing our pappers, but we do make sure to take the time to put on our gowns and double glove and make sure that we're safe before going in.
You've been doing this for a long time, and COVID's been happening for you guys since what, March? March. And how have your views changed about nursing or even life since you've been doing this?
Well, I am very grateful. I am very grateful for every single day. We see a lot of patients who are young now, younger than when during the first surge in March and April, and a lot of people who are just like you and me in our age group with children and younger children, and so they were stopped in the middle of everyday life. They got sick, and now they're in the unit. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to you and me, and so I take each day really day by day, and I'm just thankful for what I have.
What are some of the expressions you get from patients? What in terms of what kind of feelings and emotions they're expressing?
Well, of our patients who are not on a ventilator, they are scared. The ones who are on the high flow nasal cannula air systems and the non-rebreather masks, they are struggling to breathe. And so there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. They can't be with their families, and so we try our best to stay with them and to keep them going, keep them fighting. But it's tough. We encourage them to do Zoom calls with their families and to talk with them on the phone if they're able.
And how do you guys do a Zoom call? Do you have you use your own phone, or do you have a machine to do that?
We have designated iPads on rolling frames, and so we bring the iPad to the room. We call the family members just to give them the meeting ID and password, and then that way they're able to connect. And we bring the Zoom iPad into the room and place it in front of the patient.
And what's that like? I mean, how does that go?
Well, I try to give them a few minutes to ask me some questions. I oftentimes explain to them before I turn the Zoom iPad over to the patient. I'll explain to them, this is what you'll expect to see. They're going to be, if they're on a ventilator, they'll have, a tube in their mouth and it's helping them to breathe. But I basically explain to them what they will see so that they won't be so shocked. But oftentimes they are shocked when I do turn the camera to their loved one.
Right.
Do you remember some moments where you felt sort of defeated, or remember certain patients that you cared for?
Yes, I had a friend's father who was on our unit, and he was a former doctor himself. His wife had been on the fourth floor previously with COVID, and unfortunately, his wife had passed away 2 weeks prior to his being admitted to our unit. And when I picked him up as a patient, I didn't actually realize he was my friend's father until I started looking at the demographics, and I realized whose father it was. And so it was pretty personal to me because I had to communicate with my friend and his wife. They're both my friends, and it was just gut wrenching for me because his father, he did not want to be intubated, and so he ended up just wearing the nasal cannula, the high flow nasal cannula, and a non-rebreather, and he was so depressed about his wife having passed away because he wasn't even able to visit her before she passed on the 4th floor. And then he was struggling to breathe. And this was at the time when we were starting to have families come to visit. And so my friend was able to come and see his father before his father actually passed. But it was just really emotional because you feel so helpless. You're trying to comfort. I was trying to comfort both my friends and his father, and I felt very, very defeated at that time.
So the father knew what the outcome was going to be.
Yes, he knew, and that was part of the reason why he didn't want to be intubated, because there's so many risks involved with intubation, and I think he wanted to pass peacefully.
How do you get through those moments when you know that's not an isolated incident, that my next shift or a few minutes from now that I might replay this scene over and over again?
It's tough. I will after a tough shift like that, I will talk with my friends briefly. We just we let the tears go for a few minutes, and then we just grit our teeth and go back out there and do it again.
What is it like before you go into work in the mornings? Are you anticipating a terrible day, or do you just like have hopes for the best to make a difference in someone's life, or what's your thought process?
I do. I won't lie. I do get very anxious when I get in. Especially the night before I go into work. I do some meditation in the morning, some prayer, and you can only hope for the best. You just never know. I actually always anticipate the worst, and if it doesn't turn out that way, then I'm actually pretty happy.
It was a great day, yeah.
Exactly.
Right. That's funny.
But it astounds me at how much worse it can always be.
Yeah.
So unpredictable, right, from the virus?
Absolutely. I mean, even yesterday, I had probably one of the worst shifts of my life, and and prior to that, I thought that I'd experienced some pretty bad shifts.
What does a bad shift mean? If you could explain that to people listening, like what happened?
Well, I had 2 very sick people on ventilators, and it's not uncommon for us right now to take care of 2 people on ventilators because we have so many ventilators on our unit.
I mean, like each nurse, you'll get 2, and then another nurse will get 2.
Correct.
And it used to be 1-to-1?
Correct. Well, it depending on the acuity. Mm-hmm. But as it turned out that my patients their acuity was a little bit higher than the others, and they required a technique that we call proning, in which we take we take a respiratory therapist, some nurses, and some doctors, and we actually flip the patient onto their stomachs, and which is a very difficult thing to do when a patient is on a ventilator. There's a lot of coordination involved before and after, and it's not always foolproof, meaning that we've seen people, after we prone them, their oxygenation levels will improve because fluid goes from the back of the lungs to the front, and it allows them better oxygenation. So my 2 patients were requiring proning, which is very unusual. It's not unheard of, but it does happen when you have an assignment like that. So my plan was to prone, my first patient at 4 o'clock and then the other one at 4:30. So I got all the materials ready. We have to get sheets and protective padding for their bodies, and then pillows.
Is that to like avoid bed sores and stuff like that?
Correct. And then we have to coordinate who's going to help me. And so I proned my first patient, and unfortunately, his oxygenation levels didn't improve, after being on his stomach for a while. So then we had to check for tube placement. We had to, try to find out why wasn't he oxygenating. And so there were, a lot of doctors in there trying to help and figure it out. I was drawing labs, and my colleagues were in there helping me. So it was a pretty serious situation. And so that, we had to end up putting him back on his back, which we call supining. And so that required another, team of us to turn him back onto his back and wait until he settled down. Once he got to a steady state, then I had to coordinate yet another group of us to prone my other patient. So it takes a lot of coordination, and everyone was really busy yesterday. Everyone's patients were very serious, and even at the same time I was proning, we had another patient who required an emergency intubation. So it was very busy yesterday. So I must say that yesterday's shift was pretty one of the worst shifts I've ever worked, but we all came out of it. We have an amazing team, and we all lean against each other, and that's how we get through it.
I can't imagine what that must be like, and I feel like maybe in the midst of it, you're almost robotic, like you know what to do. I have to do this, and this, and then a wash of feelings after.
It's true. We are always, I feel like our adrenaline levels are always pretty high. We're always on high alert. We have to make sure that we hear the alarms going off and to investigate whose ventilator is going off. Where is that noise coming from? I don't recognize that alarm. What is that alarm? So it's very it's stressful because I feel like I'm always in in a fight and flight mechanism. I'm always in the fight mode, and
that's like a 12-hour shift.
It is, and then if it's busy, then you end up charting afterwards, and and then you have to take your showers afterwards. So I didn't get home till quite late last night.
What was your shift yesterday? Like a evening?
Yeah, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So last time I was over there, I heard music playing every so often in the overhead speakers all around the entire hospital. Can you tell me what that is?
Oh, the Beatles' "Here Comes the Sun." Yes, it's played every time a COVID patient goes home, or is discharged, and so it is actually very nice when we're running around on the unit to hear that, because it does give you a little bit of hope.
Yeah,
it really does. And there was actually one patient last week, a week and a half ago. She wasn't intubated, but she had the high flow and non-rebreather mask. She was very sick as well, and she was a young woman in her 40s. And she asked about the song. She said, "What does that song mean?" And my colleague told her it's when a COVID patient is discharged, and she said, "I want them to play that for me when I get out of here."
Wow,
and that's
great.
That is a really good. It gives not only us hope but the patients.
Yeah.
So those are some of your moments of joy or happiness. Do you have any other specific ones you remember that stick out in your mind?
When the COVID patients get discharged, I actually have not participated in the sending off, but I usually the nurses who took care of the patient, they line the lobby and give them a nice little send off. And I've been meaning to do that, but I haven't been able to because I've been up in the unit.
I saw one of those when it was a husband and wife who had been separated for 2 weeks. They both got COVID, and then they hadn't seen each other, even though because they were in separate rooms. Mm-hmm. So they didn't see each other for 2 weeks, and then they did this like reunion where they brought the husband out first, and they had the entire staff there, on that unit, and then they brought the wife out, and she just put her hands up, and
that's wonderful.
Sweet.
Yeah,
we live for moments like that.
Yeah, it was really emotional.
Is there anything else different from March? You mentioned now you're getting different age groups. I'm wondering if there's anything else different from the first surge.
Well, we are, we don't allow visitors all the time, only for, very serious circumstances. But at least I would, seeing some of the visitors come and visit their loved ones is different because during the first surge, no one was allowed to come in. But I think that our communication with the families is a little bit better. We're able to include them a little bit more with updates and Zoom calls, and I think that makes a difference to the patients as well.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing more severe illness or just more of it?
That's a good question. They're still very sick. The patients that we're having during this surge are, just as serious as the first surge. But like I said, they're younger.
Are any of them? I'm interested in knowing. Are any of them like dumbfounded? Like I can't believe I got this, or I didn't think I didn't think it was a big deal.
Yes, we did have a patient on the unit who thought it was a hoax, unfortunately. There are some people who have no idea how they got it. I had a lady who was, she was so upset because she got it, but the rest of her household didn't. And she said the only thing I could think of was I went to get some carry out. But other than that, she was angry. She didn't know how she got it. But she eventually got better and got discharged, I understand. But we do get a few people like that.
Over the past weekend, 3 million people across America flew to somewhere else for the holidays. And this coming weekend, they say there's going to be even more. What do you think about that when all the governments are saying to stay home and not travel?
Oh, it's such a risk. I just hope that people are careful. There's so many people who are asymptomatic, who could bring it home to their parents, grandparents. I'm actually kind of scared of what's going to come the next couple of weeks.
One thing I was curious about is after someone passes away, do you guys have a debrief or anything like that? Or do you just like kind of keep going and then worry about that on your own?
A debrief as in
as you talk about the case, like what could have been done differently, or is, even if you knew the patient would pass away?
Well, I have, I've talked to doctors like, what do you think we could have done? Do you think we should have started this medication earlier? And, it's just usually just, there's nothing formal between me and my colleagues. We'll talk and say, hey, I wonder what would have happened if we did this earlier. Should we have started proning him earlier? But there's nothing formal.
Do you take that home with you?
There have been cases where I've thought about it and started dwelling, but once you start dwelling on things that you have no control over, it kind of eats away at you. So I try not to dwell too long.
Yeah.
Do you ever reach out to some of the services, the the available services North Shore has for our frontline?
North Shore has had counselors come to our unit during the first surge, and I know some of my colleagues have gone during their shift to go talk to them. I've used one of the Zoom services once, and that was pretty helpful. And they do have counselors available to us even currently if we need.
Are you afraid of catching the novel coronavirus, or was that more in the first surge?
Oh, I'm always afraid. Mm-hmm. I am. I mean, I'm surrounded by it. I mean,
yeah.
It's not lost upon me that when I'm in a patient's room that I am in the epicenter of it, and I'm grateful that we have our PAPRs to protect us. North Shore has done an amazing job of keeping the PAPRs well running, that we have enough of them, and all the PPE gear is available to us. But yes, I'm still afraid of catching it.
Mm-hmm.
We had some of my colleagues shooting a video on the ICU a couple of last week, I guess. Mm-hmm. Did you see them?
I was there.
Oh, you were there? And I heard one of their batteries started to beep, and then the way my colleague told me was that like a whole bunch of people said, "Whose PAPR is beeping?" And then everyone like kind of tried to figure out what was going on. So it sounds like you guys all work together and you're all like looking out for each other.
Oh, absolutely. When we hear that battery beeping, we immediately look at our own PAPRs, make sure that we're okay. And we have a few minutes to, go out and get another battery. But everybody watches out for each other. If I was sitting at the nurse's station once. There was a nurse who was wearing her N95. She was taking a break from the PAPR, and she started rubbing her eye, and the other nurse grabbed her hand and she's like, "Don't rub your eye." Mm-hmm. So we do keep we watch out for each other.
Do you have any advice for anyone who is thinking about becoming a nurse?
Don't stop caring. You really have to care about others when you're in this position. And when you become a nurse, you just continue working hard. It's a tough job, but we can do it.
I'm so impressed by the strength and compassion you have in like equal measure. I mean, I don't know if it's innate or if it's learned, but I just wanted to say I was so great. If my family was ill, I would want them with somebody like you who can be
Thank you.
So brilliant at what you do, and then have that equal measure of compassion and then strength to help them, get through it, because, they're looking to you, I'm sure, at your eyes and trying to get a readout of how they're doing.
Well, as I had mentioned to you before, Carolyn, I treat people like I would treat my own family members. I think about what if my dad was in the hospital. I would want someone to take the time to try to understand what they're trying to say, to hold their hand if they're scared. That's all I can offer to my patients when they're feeling hopeless in the hospital. I look to my faith, of course, to give me the strength to keep going and doing this day by day, and my family.
So at the top of the hour, before you got here, Carolyn and I were talking about what we're thankful for. So I said my niece, and what did I say? What was the other thing I said? And Carolyn said turkey.
He caught me off guard. So,
do you have anything that you've been thinking about?
Oh gosh, my family, first and foremost, my husband, kids, my mom, dad, siblings, of course. They give me the strength to go on. My friends, they know what I've been through. I'm just grateful for every single day that I can get up and just live, because I see it every day that there are people who are cut down in the middle of their lives, not thinking that they weren't going to live the day. And so it really hits home to me that I've got to live each day the best I can.
It's beautifully said.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, we actually got a gift for you. It's kind of hokey, but we figured it's almost the season of giving, so I'm just going to give it to you real quick.
Oh, thank you.
It's a gift from the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Beautiful wrapping. This is very awkward for me. Shall I open this one first?
Yeah.
Sure. So that is 35 feet of holiday lights.
String lights.
Yeah, string lights. They're waterproof.
Oh, very cool.
So you can hang them up outside your house or, in the ICU if they let you.
Oh no, I'm keeping this for myself.
There you go.
My room could use some lights.
Yeah, I hung them up on my cubicle and everyone seems to get a kick out
Oh,
of it.
they're really pretty. Yeah.
And the light clips to go with
The
it.
clips to hang them up, yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
That's like a beacon for
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
Yes. Light.
Oh. And I could smell it, so my sense of smell is good.
Yeah, it's a scented candle. Yeah.
Thank you. Cedar
It's a-
So you can
magnolia.
check every day, make sure your sense of smell
Yeah,
is good.
it's a soy candle too.
Thank
I like
you.
those.
I love it.
So light and warmth.
And I was actually looking to get a candle to, burn in my room too when I meditate.
Aromatherapy.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank
This is
you.
Perfect. Thank you so
right.
much, Jon and Carolyn.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story and for doing everything that you do every day.
You're welcome.
It's so simple, everybody. Just wear your mask, stay 6 feet away, wash your hands, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, and thanks.
And thanks. No?
Good.
Whatever.